popular cryptids like man, I don't know, like the white things or the lizard demon or fire dragon. Any of those reports coming in of the oddball ones?
Yeah, I mean, you have, like I said, the one I talked about, the deer thing, but I mean, there's the older accounts you read about, the agua, the monster from Montague River, that's supposedly been seen on occasions. One from an area in Marion County here, it was called the Vegetable Man from the 1960s. I believe it was 68. It was like a plant-based looking, I guess, alien. This gentleman was out hunting, and this thing basically said something to him, and then stuck spikes in his arm, is what the story is, and sucked plasma from his guy. Things like that. I mean, as far as me getting them, no, I mean, not very often. The only other one I can think of was another one. The guy actually called it. He said he called it the Appalachian chupacabra. He said it was not what we've got the known chupacabra as now. The blue-eyed, hairless dog, whatever creature thing. He said this was more the South America style. He said this thing was about 4 feet tall, stood. He sent me a drawing of it. Had spikes down its back. It was a lizard-shaped looking thing, or a reptilian looking thing. Stood about 3 to 4 foot tall. Fangs. What you see is the general, like I said, South American description of chupacabra. And he said it was standing in the middle of the road. Him and his buddy were looking at it from their truck, and it, if I remember right, it turned to him and made some kind of noise and just took off running through the brush and just smashing through the woods. That's one I can remember.
Yeah, that definitely has the earmarks of the what you just said, the South America down in that area with the spikes on the back. Let me ask you this. In your research or with the reports, have you found any correlations between Bigfoot sightings and maybe UFO sightings, or any overlapping sightings within a time frame?
Not really. I know there are people that do and put that, draw that correlation with them, but no, it just seems, the ones I've seen to have, it just seems like it's, if you can take all of them for what they are, it just seems like an animal. I mean, it just seems like it's a wooded animal, or an animal, that most people seem to come across by happenstance, whether it's out walking or driving or riding ATVs but no, I've not had any that draw a correlation between like UFO and that nature.
Yeah, anything at least footprints and hair, it definitely is. I think it's a flesh and blood animal. Now, it may have abilities to do things that maybe we don't know. Maybe it can cloak or something. I don't know. These are answers I definitely would like to find out someday. But now, as far as the reports have come in, is there any, where people have been totally threatened or any nothing like that at all, or mostly just been see them and been scared off, or you tell me?
Most of the ones I've got, are generally, anyone that has a threatening is kind of in a bluffing nature. They throw something, or they scream, or they howl, but a lot of them are just, like I said, they're happenstance. They come across them while they're out hunting. I have seen them while they're hunting. They're walking around, or like one guy I talked to was riding his dirt. He had a street and trail bike, was riding trails, stopped at the top of a ridge, and heard something just several yards, probably he said about 50 yards down the trail, as he was waiting on his buddy to come up the backside of the trail, and he turned and seen this 7 foot tall hairy man. He said, "I know what I saw." He said it was a creature. And it's standing there, and he said it turned and looked at him, never threatened him at all. he said, but it did have a look like, hey, you know, why, you know, like it was surprised to see him as much as he was surprised to see it. And he said it just turned back around and walked off. He said, but I know if it wanted to, it could have got me. It could have hurt me. There wasn't nothing I could have done. He said it was big, you know. But
right.
other than that, I don't get any like major threatening ones. You know, the best one I can think of comes from like the 70s. The gentleman told me about. He said he had just got back from Vietnam. He was living with his parents. His one sister lived with him. She had several kids, I guess, or a few kids. They were his nieces and nephews, and they all lived on a farm. And he was volunteered, I guess, one day to stay with the younger kids while his mom and sister went grocery shopping, and his dad was off at work. So he's in the house, and they had a well, you know, for water, and the pump was actually in the bottom of the one part of the house. Well, for some reason the pump quit working, so the water had cut off. So he told his one nephew, he said, I need you to go downstairs, you know, check, see why the pump kicked off. He said, I had to stay here with the rest of the kids. And his nephew was scared. He's like, no, I'm not going outside, because he had to go outside to go into the basement. And he said, I'll stand at the back door while you go down to the pump. And as his nephew walked across the yard, and the way the fellow described the house had almost an L shape to it, and the doorway for the basement was off to the other corner of the house. And as he started down toward the basement, this gentleman said he seen his nephew start down. A large, hairy arm, which he said almost a orangey, reddish brown, with long hair hung down about 3 to 4 inches below it, you know, from its arm, come around the corner and started to grab his nephew by the top of the head. And that's when he screamed, yelled at his nephew, and his nephew looked up and seen it and actually jumped and ran back to the house, and the arm went back around the house, and that was the last they seen. He said, and we never seen anything else after that. But he said, I distinctly remember that happening. So to me, that's kind of threatening in nature. I mean that fits right in the, you know, the abduction type cases you hear about.
Yeah, that's a very scary story right there. My good, can you imagine if he hadn't been looking out, what would have happened? He would just disappear. Nobody would have knew nothing. I mean, I wonder how many times that's ever happened. You know, you kind of think about that around the world or around the country anyway. But have you ever been to Point Pleasant? Do you ever do any investigating there, or what's the scariest place you've had to go to in West Virginia?
I've been to Point Pleasant. I just went up and, you know, for the festival, and I've been up to the TNT areas and walked around there a little bit. As far as investigating, or what are we talking? Is cryptid or paranormal? What are we talking?
Either way. Yeah, either way.
Actually, for me, it was paranormal, because I've done some residentials, and I've been some of the bigger locations that you hear about, you know, but, you know, I've done residentials that really make you think, that have had some things that, you know, that people have needed help with, and I've done my best to help them. And, I mean, I did one case here recently where the family was having issues with things in the house. I went and done an interview with them, showed them what I was going to be doing, and they wanted to see firsthand. So I started doing a spirit box section, and within 40-some seconds of it, as turning it on, the spirit box, a voice clearly comes across. You can hear. I mean, there's no guessing, because unless it's something I can hear and have, you know, it's Class A basically. I don't keep. I just, if you have to guess about it, I'm not going to keep it. But this clearly goes, hey, Les, just clear as can be, comes across the recording or comes across the spirit box. A little while later, we were asking more questions, and we just hear plain as day, it goes, get out. And the man of the house there, because they didn't own the house, they rented the house. He said, "Why do you want us to leave?" And within a few seconds, it clearly comes across with a name. Well, the name it came across with was the lady of the house was sitting right there on the couch. Then a little bit later, we have another that comes across, and it just, I can't say the word out, but it says a-hole.
Oh,
and we're like, okay. And I asked, who is that? And it clearly gives us a name. The name that said was their daughter sitting right there on the couch beside her mother. So that right there made me realize that this was pretty intelligent. Then it went on more. I talked to the individuals of the household later. I said, "Hey, we're going to get this set, try to get this situated for you." The woman of the house actually started messaging me, say, "Hey, there's more to it," and started telling me a bunch of other things about what was going on, how her husband was acting. And I talked to a psychic friend of mine. She said, "Yeah, I'm getting the feeling this is not a demonic entity, but it's a really nasty, negative entity. And he'd rather every woman in the house be dead than them live in his house." So then, a few things went on. We finally, done a small investigation with a couple of my colleagues, and we did a clearing. They did, clearing and cleansing and binding, and everything was good for a few weeks. The lady said, "Yeah, everything's been good," and I kept in touch with them. And then I finally, after about, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks, because I told him, I said, "It may not work this first time. You may have to go back and do this again." And she's like, "We're starting to hear the noises again. This is starting to happen again." And there's like, "We're out. We're done. We're moving." So they moved. So that's one of the more real cases that I've dealt with. That, to me, because it had kids involved and family involved, there was a family involved. That is frightening to me. Going to say, a prison or an old prison or an old insane asylum or something like that. Yeah, they have their moments, but when it deals with that certain family or something like that firsthand, that's fearful for me. That I want to help those people.
I don't blame you. Now, hey, we got to jump in here because our time is almost up. How can people, if they want to contact you, Les, how do they contact you?
They can just reach me on Facebook. Usually through my page, it's WV Cryptids and Strange Encounters, where they can email me. The email for it, I can't get it to work, or they can email me directly personally. It's Pioneer, PIONEERLES @yahoo.com.
Wow. Now, hey, Les, I want you to keep contact with us. Maybe we can get you back in here, on again around February. And, if anything major, happens in the, cryptic field, get a hold of me. My email address. Just, and we can even bring you on up if it's for a half an hour or whatever, just to get it out.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's been a good time, guys.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want you to have a great New Year's, and hopefully you had a great Christmas. I
sure did, and I hope yours goes good Saturday.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you for being on Night Dreams.
Thanks, Liz.
All right, thank you.
Okay, night,
thank
sir.
You.
Bye.
So anyway, we're about ready to go on break here, and I tell you, you know what? Cryptics, like I said, the reports of them are getting more and more than that. In the past couple years, it seems like in the last couple months, it's been more than the last couple years of reports. Haven't you noticed, on the news media, people contacting us, guests coming on about all the cryptics and stuff?
Yeah, the reports of the cryptics have really went up, and when I say that, I'm not counting the Bigfoot. I keep that as a separate little pile. But yeah, they really has increased since September. They really have went up, and I can tell you that at least in my little world, in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, the Bigfoot sightings have